Where exactly is this midway of doom? Pull up a map of the Middle East. Now look at the very bottom of the Persian Gulf. See that tiny twist gap connecting the Gulf to the open ocean? That's the Strait of Hormuz. It doesn't look like much. In fact, at its narrowest point, it's just 21 miles wide. To put that into perspective, that's only a little wider than New York City's Manhattan Island. And yet, this narrow stripe of water carries an astonishing share of the world energy. Now here is the part that sounds almost unbelievable. The entire stretch may be 21 miles across, but ships don't have all the 21 miles to use. The official shipping lanes are only 2 miles wide in each direction. That's it. Imagine two narrow lanes on a highway. Now replace the cars with some of the largest ships ever built, floating giant carrying millions of barrels of oil. One mistake, one accident, one military confrontation, and traffic through one of the world's most important waterway can grind to a halt. Before this year, around 130 ships squeezed through this tiny gap every single day. Not cruise ship, not cargo ship, filled with clothes or electronics. These were giant oil tankers and liquefied natural gas carrier. The ship carrying the fuel that powers your car, generate electricities, heat homes, keeping factory running, and quietly supports modern life as we know it. Every day, roughly 20 million barrels of crude oil pass through this one narrow passage. That's nearly a quarter of all the oil trade by sea anywhere on earth. And it doesn't stop there. Around 20% of the world liquefied natural gas also travel through these same two shipping lanes. Which means a disruption here doesn't stay here. It ripples through gas stations, power plants, businesses, and households thousands of miles away. Normally, this invisible highway operates almost without annual notice. But 2026 has been anything but normal. So who actually owns the Strait of Hormuz? The answer is no one. These are international water. Any commercial ship has the right to pass through this narrow corridor under international law. Simple enough. Except the real world doesn't always follow the rule book, because on the northern side of the strait, Iran, its coastline stretches along one side of this vital waterway, dotted with military bases overlooking the shipping lanes. It also controls several strategically located islands inside and around the strait. From those positions, Iran doesn't just watch the world energy flow by, it can threaten it. But here's what makes this so dangerous. Iran doesn't need an enormous aircraft carrier fleet or the world's biggest navy to create a global crisis. Instead, it relies on something military strategically called asymmetric warfare. Rather than matching large navy ships for ship, Iran uses speed, surprise, and geography to its advantage. Think fast, attack boat racing toward giant tanker, shore-based anti-ship missile hidden along the coastline, naval mass capable of turning busy shipping lanes into deadly obstacle, and swarm of drones that are difficult to detect and expensive to stop. Together, these are relatively inexpensive weapons can create an enormous problem of some of the world's most advanced militaries. And that's exactly why markets pay attention every time tension rises here. Because Iran don't have to sink every tanker. It doesn't even have to close the strait completely. Just the possibility of disruption can send oil prices soaring, driving up shipping costs, increasing insurance premium, and eventually make everyday goods more expensive for people thousands of miles away. But here's another twist. Iran depends on this water too. A large share of its own oil export passes through the same strait. So, closing it completely would damage Iran's economy as well. Which means this has never been just about shutting the highway down. It's about leveraging. It's about sending a message to the rest of the world, saying we may not own this waterway, but we have the ability to make everyone think twice before using it. That's when it begins to feel real. Iran has been threatening to close this strait for decades, and sometimes they eventually done it. Let's go back to the 1980s. Iran and Iraq were at war. Both sides attacked oil tankers in and around the strait. They used naval mass to shut down traffic. The US got involved. They fought a one-day naval battle against Iran in 1988. It was called the Tanker War, and it was a mess. But in 2019, the US Navy blamed Iran for a series of attacks on tankers near the strait. They used limpet mines, basically explosive that attacked to ship hulls. Then in 2021, a drone attack an Israeli-linked oil tanker. The US blamed Iran for that too. For decades, every confrontation ended the same way. The world held breath, and the strait stayed open until 2026. This is where it gets really scary. On February 28th, the US and Israel launched a massive strike on Iran, Operation Epic Fury. It hit nuclear sites, military bases, and it killed Iran's supreme leader, the man who had ruled the country for over 3 decades. Iran retaliated with missiles across the region, and on March 4th, crossed the Strait of Hormuz. Within this, the invisible highway that powered the global economy became earlier quiet. Iran led miles in the water, attacked ships with drones and gunboats. Some tankers were allowed through if they paid Iran, or if their country played along. Everyone else turned back. By April, the United Nations reported something almost impossible to picture: 20,000 sailors, 2,000 ships trapped in the Gulf. Not because of the weather, not because of the mechanical failure. It's because the only way out was a 21-mile gap. Nobody could guarantee was safe. Some of those crew were stuck for months, running low on food, cut off from their families. By June, at least 14 sailors had been killed. The prices spiked past $100, the highest in 4 years. A ceasefire was finally signed in June 2026. On paper, the war was over, but even after the deal, Iran's own military briefly declared the Strait closed again, before its government walked in back hours later. Even with a deal signed, nobody is fully sure the Strait is safe. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Qatar, Iraq, and Bahrain, they all export their oil through the Strait. When the Strait closed, oil stopped flowing, and Asia is the biggest customer. China, India, Japan, South Korea. The world's oil didn't disappear. It simply couldn't reach the people who needed it, and straight with an oil tanker thousands of miles away. It ends with you paying more at the gas station, more at the supermarket, and more almost everywhere else. And when oil prices spike, everything else follows. Shipping costs, food, manufacturing, fertilizers, fuel, everything. Now, there will be a backup plan, and this is actually the one piece of good news in this whole story. Saudi Arabia has a pipeline that crosses the entire country to the Red Sea, called Petroline. Before the war, it normally ran around 5 million barrels a day. When the crisis hit, Saudi Arabia pushed it to 7 million barrels a day, and an all-time record in just over a week. The UAE also has a pipeline to the port of Fujairah outside the Strait entirely. It can carry up to about 1.8 million barrels a day. But here is the problem. The Strait normally carries 20 million barrels a day. Even these two pipelines combined, it can only replace less than half of that. So millions of barrels a day still had nowhere to go. The UAE's own oil chief said it plainly. This was the most severe energy supply disruption in modern history. Full recovery, he said, might not happen until 2027, even if peace holds. And that means you pay more for longer than anyone expected. Here is the part that keeps me up at night. The Strait of Hormuz is not the only choke point. We cover the Suez Canal, we cover Panama. Now you have seen Hormuz. Not as a hypothetical, but as something that actually happened. And there are more. Every single one of these is a single point of failure. One accident, one attack, one miscalculation, and the machine stops. The modern world was built for speed, for efficiency, not for resilience. We built a global economy that depends on a handful of narrow passages, tiny ripples of water, thin strip of land, and we acted like that was fine. 2026 proved it wasn't, because these checkpoints ain't going anywhere, and the people who control them know exactly how much power they have. This is the world we built, and this is the world we have to live in.